Welcome to Free to Speak, the New Zealand podcast that digs deep into the principles behind our most contentious issues. This podcast is brought to you by the New Zealand Free Speech Union, an organisation that defends and promotes freedom of expression as a cornerstone of a free and democratic society. If you value discussions like the one you're about to hear, subscribe to the podcast. And if you'd like to learn more, check out the work of the Free Speech Union. Without any further delay, let's get into it.
Welcome to the Free Speech Union podcast. I'm council member Dane Giraud. In my day job, I'm a screenwriter and frequently a comedy writer, but today, no laughing matter, or maybe it is. I have with me lawyer Douglas Brown, who is also on the council with me. We're going to talk today about Internet New Zealand and our attempts to get Douglas onto the board. There were elections last year and our former chief executive, Jonathan Ayling, was elected. Douglas unfortunately didn't get in, but we will be trying again. And what sort of opened up this can of worms for us again is a piece that appeared in Stuff, didn't it? It was Glenn O'Connell wrote it. So maybe you just want to recap that article to start with, and we can sort of springboard from there. And because a lot of our supporters were very involved in this campaign. How many ended up voting in the end? How many did we sign up?
We signed up almost 1,000.
Well, that's incredible, and you know, good stuff.
It was phenomenal. And a couple of other groups also signed up a large amount, and the Internet New Zealand numbers went from 300 members to about 3,500, almost 4,000 members in the space of about 3 months.
Which was sort of framed as a nefarious plot, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It really wasn't. Very, very far from it.
Okay, well, tell us, let's start there. Why was it not a nefarious plot?
Because we didn't think of it as a takeover or any, there was no intention to take over whatsoever. This started out of a concern that there were changes mooted to the Internet New Zealand Constitution that we were concerned would lead to them censoring groups if those groups didn't agree with Internet New Zealand or with certain groups that Internet New Zealand thought should be favoured. Essentially, Internet New Zealand had decided that there should be a prioritisation given to Te Reti o Waitangi, and I say that using the Maori version of the treaty. Specifically, they used that on purpose to refer to it because it has a specific meaning. They wanted that included in their their constitution. They wanted it used specifically as a guiding principle. And so when they came to publicise these, when we looked at these, we thought, there's a problem here. And so what they wanted to do was they said, okay, we're going to centre the treaty in our work. Users must be able to enjoy the internet free from harm. Now, we all want that. We all want people to be free from harm, but there's a different meaning to that if you're saying we're going to enforce a safe space for people, and that immediately will raise alarm bells for a lot of people, and that when Internet New Zealand, which effectively has a lot of control over the internet in the country, says we're going to enforce a harm-free environment for people, or we're going to do our best to have a harm-free environment for people, that means they're going to take away, or do their best to take away, the harms that people can experience. And in recent years, the concept of harm has grown from just being physical harm and the sort of trauma that comes about through child sexual activity, images and threats, terrorist material, things like that, to simple hearing things you don't like. Hearing concepts you don't like, having people disagree with you can be seen as harm. During the Black Lives Matter protests, we heard the phrase silence is violence. Is that harm? And so that was a concern. the Internet New Zealand was to have co-governance, 2 co-chairs, one of whom must be Maori. Well, that's not really a problem. It's up to that Internet New Zealand. They're an incorporated society. If they want one co-chair to be Maori, that's up to them. Members who don't agree with Internet New Zealand being a Te Tiriti-centric organisation will be ineligible for the board. Well, that's an awful lot like kicking people out based on their viewpoint.
Well, yeah, let's get a board that agrees completely with what we're into, so everything we want to do just goes through very, very smoothly without
Precisely
any judderbar, anything like that. Well, I think we need to back up a little bit, Douglas, because like you're a lawyer, and I just love that I'm exposed to so many lawyers on the board because you guys make me a lot smarter. But so I think we just need to establish.
I like the way you say that.
I think we just need to establish, because it could be easy for people to hear this and say, oh, yeah, well, I don't like it and all that. But what was this? What was Internet New Zealand set up to do? Because
all right. Oh, that's a lot of fun.
Let's go right back to the beginning. What was it set up to do? Because the thing is, it feels to me like it's sort of grown or wants to grow a little bit like the BSA. It wants to become a different kind of monster. When I say monster, I do mean a Lovecraftian beast with many different tentacles that can reach into all sorts of different areas. Am I accurate?
Okay, that is a big question. Internet New Zealand has the overall responsibility for domains in New Zealand. Oddly enough, it's not a government-run organisation. It's actually a private entity. It's an incorporated trust. And so people might be surprised to learn that the entity that's effectively running domains. Now, domains are the name of your website. You'll have a website, danegiraud.com, danegiraud.co.nz. That's a domain name. Okay. Ultimately, it can reduce down to numbers, that the IP address that we talk about, but that's a domain name. And Internet New Zealand is responsible for that, and it's part of the wider internet group of bodies who are all responsible for this, and they come together all the time. They're responsible for security. They're responsible for preventing terrorism, cyber fraud.
I'll just dig down into that. So when you say responsible for domains, what are they sifting through? What are they trying to stop? Or
they lease them.
Or
they literally lease them out. They sell them.
But what when they right at the beginning, what would they have been before they all this sort of censorship madness happened? What would they have been looking for? Like I'm talking about right at the birth of this organization. What were they specifically trying to stop?
All right, you got me there. You'll have to explain. You'll have to define your question better. What are they at the birth of the organization? What are they trying to stop? They're not trying to stop anything at the birth of your organization.
Well, maybe
they're an enabling organization.
They're enabling, but like say someone, say someone else was danegiraud.com and I called them and said there's someone impersonating me, and this is a problem. Would they have been involved in that kind of stuff?
Potentially, but not always.
Well, okay, because that's what I'm saying. So you tried to say, like you set up wanted a GOV NZ or something. I mean, they'd stop that, wouldn't they?
Okay, so we in the early days of the internet, we had a thing called cyber squatters, where people would come in and say, I know that paulmccartney.com is going to be a really valuable site because Paul McCartney will want it at some point, but he hasn't realized that the internet's going to be a big thing and that he will want it at some point. So I'm going to buy it for $45. And at some point, Paul McCartney will come to me and say, hey, can I buy that off you? And I will charge him $1 million for it. And so the Domain Name Commission for the United States, which is responsible for the .com domain name, would then be able to adjudicate on that. And they'd be able to say to the cyber squatter, get lost, or words to that effect. It's the same here. If someone comes in and says, I'm just cyber squatting on this because I think I can make a buck out of it, then you can take a case to the Domain Name Commission and say, hey, please do me a good one here and do it right for me. That said, if there really was someone called Paul McCartney and they'd got paulmccartney.com ahead of Paul McCartney the Englishman, then Paul McCartney the Englishman may be out of luck. There have been times when big companies have just gone ahead and got the rights to it simply because they're a bigger company. There are other times when they've just gone in and said, hey, we'll pay you a whole lot of money and got the website themselves. And so it's been a lot of fun. So cyber squatting's a big one. Internet security, cybersecurity has been a huge one for the domain name commissions because, of course, if you can represent yourself as being from a particular country by having, say, a .co.nz address, even though, say, you're an Australian or a Hong Kong or a Chinese company, you can do what's called cyber. You can do cyber fraud. You can do retail fraud simply by saying, hey, we're a New Zealand company and we will sell to you. Here's our fake Auckland address. You buy through us and we will ship to you. And of course, the money immediately goes overseas, and that's it. You don't get your money back. And of course, the New Zealand police, the New Zealand banks, none of those actually have any ability to go after the overseas fraudsters because they're not in New Zealand. Especially if you're using, say, a Visa debit card or a MasterCard debit card, because, of course, the normal credit card rules don't apply there. You can't go and say, hey, please put a stop to that. It's instantly transferred. And so the idea that these foreign companies may be able to represent them as locals is a big issue. So the domain name service providers have a huge role to play in cybersecurity, in allowing governments to fight terrorism. They work closely with GCSB, with the New Zealand Police, with Customs. At the same time, they, of course, don't themselves sell the website names. You don't go to Internet New Zealand to buy the website names. You'll go to First Domains or Free Parking, as they were, and buy them off that. And they don't run the names necessarily themselves. The Domain Name Commission is a subsidiary of Internet New Zealand who actually does that on a day-to-day basis, and they are delegated that authority through an agreement with Internet New Zealand.
So how many is their staff? So they'd have a few staff, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they do. They're not huge, but they are very geeky. And they have and sufficient staff to keep themselves busy. From memory, they're still working around about a half dozen to 10 staff members fully, and they are really, really busy. Certainly, the council keeps themselves very, very occupied.
So, what brought on all these changes? Was there a new appointment, or did new people come in that sort of have an agenda to really broaden the scope? What do you think happened there?
There was a couple of things. There was a new chair. Stephen Judd came in. He is a Christchurch-based IT entrepreneur. There was also some agitation from outside Internet New Zealand coming in through the COVID era, the George Floyd riots, things like that brought in the new feeling that there should be some sort of acknowledgement of historic wrongs. Now, in the 90s, before the top level domains, the .coms, the .co.nz, the .aus and the like, had been the only domains you could get. The ones that you can get nowadays, the .kiwis, the .fams, the .infos, didn't exist.
Oh.
And there had been pressure or requests made to have Indigenous ones, and there'd been some mishandling of that by previous InternetNZ members back in the 90s. And certainly you could argue that there was a need for some apologies to be made by people at the time. I mean, people are people. You know, there are times when they're rude. There are times when they mishandle things. There are times when they're just dismissive. There are times when they don't think things through. Whether the sins of the previous employees should be visited on the current employees is a different question. Ultimately, what happened, though, was that the Council of Internet New Zealand commissioned a report that, quite frankly, they should not have paid for. It was a complete waste of money.
Isn't that most of them?
Oh my goodness, it was appalling. And it essentially went to staff members and others and said, well, what do you think? And came back and said, you're all institutionally racist. And Internet New Zealand said, oh, yes, we are. And we're very sorry for that. And we will amend that by, or ameliorate that by being centering to Te Reti o Waitangi. And the fascinating thing, of course, is at the AGM, they were literally asked, well, what does that mean? And they said, well, we're going to spend the next 12 months finding out. Yeah, and I can see by your face. And the question is, how can you put something in your constitution if you don't know what it means?
Well, that's right. Look, I worked for Māori television for about 10 years. I mean, I was definitely, centering the treaty because we were working on language revitalization and things like that. But often, I think there are so many businesses where that whole concept just is abstract to the point that it means nothing.
Yeah, exactly.
And I'm the first person to defend Māori and language and all that kind of stuff. But sometimes it just isn't going to work. It's just going to sit there. Like, I won't say which organization because I want to work for them again. But, they said in the interview, are you a titariti type of guy? And I said, I'm titariti hard. And I went into the office and there wasn't one Māori there.
Yeah.
It's like, that could have been a start.
Well, the first question is always, what does that actually mean? And the fact is that it means one thing to some people and it means a different thing to others. I mean, you can say, okay, well, it's the Maori version of the Treaty of Waitangi. Well, yes, it is. But to a certain subset of people, especially academic Maori and some other academics, using the words Te Reti o Waitangi means specifically the view that the Treaty of Waitangi did not see Maori ceding sovereignty to Queen Victoria. And so if you say we're taking a Te Reti o Waitangi view, you are agreeing that New Zealand, the property parts of New Zealand that at the time in 1840 did not belong to Europeans were not ceded to the Crown. Now, in case you're wondering, that is the current view of the Human Rights Commission. And I know that because
Doesn't Paul Moon would say the same thing though, wouldn't he?
Absolutely. It's not a minority. It's not a niche view.
No.
Not a niche view. And so the first question you've got to answer is, well, are you saying that New Zealand was not ceded to the Crown? Now, if New Zealand wasn't ceded to the Crown, and then do you understand that's what you're saying?
Well, for me, it's like, if you feel that way, that's fine. And I haven't really delved deep into it, but I could be convinced. I mean, I'm not saying I'd be convinced. How does that impact the day-to-day running of the board?
Perfectly entitled to hold that view. Absolutely, totally entitled. But you should know whether that's the view you're taking or whether you're just using the Maori name for the Treaty of Waitangi. That's the first thing.
That's right. And that's the first thing. And then, like I say, materially,
what's the effect it's going to have on your constitution and the running of your board?
Because the thing is, if you just put it in there without even really sort of thinking that through, then who knows how people are going to interpret the stuff in 15 years' time. And
they didn't know.
They couldn't know. It could just be a madhouse.
They didn't have a clue. And unfortunately, it's a common feature up and down the country. You can take the view. There's nothing wrong with taking the view at all.
That's what we're saying. Take the view, but know what it means.
Know what it means.
And know how it's going to impact the work here. And if you can't decide what that is...
And don't force others to hold that view. And that's the point. You can't be on the board unless you have a Te Tiriti Awatangi centric view. Now, if that means that you can't be on the board unless you think New Zealand wasn't sovereignted by the Maori chiefs in 1840, then we've got a problem.
See, again, how is having the contrary view impacting on the work of a board like this? Anyway,
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
It's just like, I want people in my tribe. I want people that think similar to me. I want to work with people that think similar to me.
You can only be on the board if you agree with me.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
it.
That's not, well, I would say that defeats the purpose of the board.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Our board, I mean, it's interesting because, like, I know everyone calls us far right, but
I love that.
yeah, I was very left wing as a kid, and then, growing up in South Auckland, I by the time I come, I joined the Free Speech Union as a board member, I'm sort of centrist, not thinking about all that stuff too much, but the free speech fight pushed me way further left,
Yeah.
and I think the other interesting thing too is that we all come at free speech from slightly different angles.
Yeah, very much so.
I mean, I was having a bit of an argument with Damien Grant recently where he said, you should support this person's right to speech because he's a human being and dignity means he should be allowed to speak. And I was like, well, I think the guy's a scumbag.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he's potentially dangerous. And I want to know what he thinks. And I cannot know what he thinks if he's silenced.
Yeah.
And he's like, no. And it's like, well, it's not a matter of no, or yes. It's a matter of, there's not one way to skin this cat. There's not one way to sort of believe, to believe in free speech. And I'll tell you what I've been thinking about a bit lately, Douglas, the economic impact. And we can move on to that now. We'll circle back to the internet
Sure.
thing and your plans for this year. But with Keir Starmer announcing that he wants to ban.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
Well, the thing that got me thinking about it, I did a bit of research and stuff, is like, because it's something no one really talks about. And they should, and we should.
Yeah.
What is economic impact of censorship? Now, if you've got a leader saying, you know what, I'm just going to ban this social media platform.
Mm-hmm.
He's wiping out businesses if he does that, because there's businesses that are reliant on it.
Yep.
Actions, all that kind of stuff. And it did make me think, and I'll probably write a piece on this, and I want to do more podcasting on this, is that free speech is more than a civil liberty and an individual right. It's actually a information system or structure. It empowers information. So in terms of markets, journalists, researchers, all these people have almost unfettered access to highlight corruption, to test whether ideas are good or not, and adjust accordingly. There's an economic dimension to free speech I don't think people really take into account enough. And if you've got world leaders, because I mean, the UK economy is not a good place.
It's a terrible place.
It's in a terrible place. He's a very beleaguered leader. He wants to do this. It's like, I mean, I would never put money in Russia. Why? Because Putin could just say, that doesn't exist anymore, or it belongs to me now. And Starmer's sort of taken the UK in that
Yes.
direction.
You've just described Friedrich Hayek to a T. Both the Road to Serfdom and the Constitution of Liberty. I'm sorry, but you can join me as a sort of proto-Austrian. No, you're absolutely right. The free market responds to market signals, and the only way to have true market signals is to have free exchange of ideas between people. Normally, we call them prices. Okay, without people being able to give the ideas to what something is worth, we don't know, and the market can't exist. This is why protectionism is bad. It's why regulation, certainly most regulation, heavy-handed regulation, is bad in the economic sense, and it's why even things like the government's recent or the current attempt to prohibit surcharges. It takes away the ability of small retailers to pass on surcharges for pay wave onto customers. Interrupts the market. It takes away price signals. And stops putting pressure on banks to get rid of those. All of that requires freedom of speech. And when you take away the freedom of speech, when you interrupt that, you're absolutely right. It interrupts the market and interrupts the economy. X is such a huge part of the economy. It's such a huge part of knowing what's going on. People talk on it with economics so much. There is so much economic data given on X that if Starmer succeeds in taking it out of the UK, they are going to miss out in such an enormous way. There are stock trackers. Nancy Pelosi's stock tracker. I don't know if you subscribe to that. If you don't, you really should. It's absolutely hilarious. There is literally a stock tracker on X that tracks Nancy Pelosi and her trades. It is phenomenal. She is literally one of the most successful stock traders in the world.
But that is just radical democracy right there, isn't it?
Precisely.
Here's a woman who has lorded over us, and we follow her transactions and what money she's making, and because we can judge it off the decisions that she makes in power. That to me, that is just fantastic stuff. That is the case.
Yeah, it's the market at work.
Yeah,
and that's what free speech is all about. Even coming back to your point when you were talking to Damien about wanting to know what this guy is saying, so you can decide whether you want to associate with him or not. Because you want to assess his character. That's the market at work. Yeah. Do you want to associate with him? Do you want to be around him? Is his group of friends going to increase or decrease? That is all the market.
Can I trust him at all? Should I be doing business with this character?
Do you buy his books? Do you read his columns? All of that. That's the market at work, and that's market signals. And without X, Facebook's the same. A shout out to a good supporter of freedom of speech, and Rex Witherspoon, of course, who had a hard time with Facebook when they shut him down during the censorship mad era. His business, which has only just been got going again because David Seymour stepped in. Lots of people got caught up with Facebook just hammering down unnecessarily on people who were suspected of being sort of not towing the party line, and it cost them. It's cost lots of people their business because they have their businesses on X, they have it on Facebook or Instagram, and if these platforms are shut down, that's their business gone. And the politicians are just happy to say, I don't like what's happening on this, therefore let's get rid of it. And they ignore all of this.
Well, what I find really depressing about I find a lot of things really depressing about Starmer. But what I find really, really depressing about him is he's clearly doing it because he knows he's going to get hammered in their version of midterms. Like they've got some elections coming up, haven't they? There.
Wow, they're supposed to, but they're putting them all off. Well, at least the ones that Reform look like winning.
Well, see, this is getting pretty nutty, isn't it, over there?
Well, it's just plain wrong.
So why is he doing that? I didn't
because they're going to lose them. The problem with UK council elections, which is what you're talking about, the UK council elections are usually a referendum on how the government's doing, not on how the local council's doing. And so usually what you'll find is if the government's unpopular, the local council will suffer and change hands. Now, the Labour government is giving some councils the opportunity to delay their elections, and the ones that look like going towards Reform are choosing, oddly enough, to delay their elections.
How do they get away with that?
Because the government's given the opportunity, because they can.
Yeah, this is a venal character, eh?
Yes, yeah. Well, and the really sad thing is, of course, is that he was a founding member, I think, of Matrix Chambers, which started theoretically as a human rights chambers. He was one of Claire Booth Casey's, Tony Blair's wife, fellow members of Chambers. So it was supposed to be a human rights outfit. And then he
Yeah,
became a deputy director of public prosecutions, the chief prosecutor, and of course missed the grooming gangs because, of course, they didn't prosecute anyone when he was DPP.
yeah. See,
So he's
that's
on the defensive with that too.
yeah, yeah. But this is something he can take action on, needs to take action on right now.
Well, it
like
helps them too because, of course, Elon Musk is they don't like Elon Musk, which is ironic because, of course, under Elon Musk, X, formerly Twitter, has become far more balanced as a free speech platform. It used to be 60-40-ish or 65-35 left-wing to right. Now it's roughly 50-50. It's certainly no more than 50-50 left-right.
I think we probably do need to address the even though I don't really believe it, but we do need to address the claims that Starmer and Albanese are making that the Grok is sort of stripping down female MPs or whatever and putting them in bikinis and stuff like
Did
that.
him too. Wasn't pleasant.
And yeah,
Oh no, it can go worse than that. It can if you prompt it correctly. It can actually remove clothes altogether. That said, it's not the actual physical person. It is a representation of the person.
Well, that's what I was going to say, and this might be controversial. I might get a bit of shit for that, but
Surely not. Yeah.
But the satire like that, you could catch in Playboy in the 70s.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing is that I could do this on Photoshop. I mean, if I did it, it wouldn't be very good, But the fact is, you could do it on Photoshop, and nobody is proposing to take down Adobe.
No, it does. The potential to do it is there, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, easy peasy. It's been done for years. You can also, and there are slightly greater controls on ChatGPT and Claude and the like, and Gemini. But you can, if you have the right prompts, get around their safety controls too. So you can do it. It's possible. All right. So, and there's no moral panic about those. The moral panic about Grok is linked entirely to the fact that it's connected to Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is a target of the left. And they want to get rid of it. They want to get rid of X.
Yeah. And they'll say things like he wants to put in right parties or far right parties and all this kind of stuff. But these same people never had a problem when, like the Biden laptop thing. Like, I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the American government reacts to it. I don't think they'd go as far as sanctioning, but if they were to. If he was to ban X outright, I see. The other thing is that I can't see how he bans X outright and doesn't. I mean, he's going to lose the next election anyway. I would say he's.
I'm not sure he'll make it to the next election.
Well, that's the thing, and he might think. See, obviously, he thinks his base want this. He thinks his base.
The problem we've got is it doesn't matter about Starmer making it to the next election. The other MPs in his government agree with him on this. It's not just him. And so, in fact, he's probably moving slower than other senior level MPs in his government want. You mentioned the Hunter Biden laptop, and that's a great example because, of course, the Hunter Biden laptop was entirely true. It was Hunter Biden's laptop. In fact, he admitted it in his trial.
Mm-hmm.
And yet it was completely silenced on the basis that it was unproven, and 50 former US intelligence officials said it was likely a Russian disinformation play and the like. And it almost certainly would have had a significant effect on the US election if it had been publicized. So we have, again, a suppression of freedom of speech. I mean, the New York Post had their Twitter account suspended for a while because they tried to link to their website with it.
But that was probably what pushed Musk over the edge to buy Twitter.
Absolutely.
Like that would have been it. So there was a backlash there. Just on this topic again, the media, very similar to the Hunter Biden laptop thing, have not wanted to touch the Iranian protests, clearly.
Not one bit.
I follow a few Jewish British journalists who were sort of hassling some BBC people, and they were saying, well, it's unverified and we don't know and we can't say yet. They had no problem parroting Hamas propaganda for a year. Nothing that activists say about Israel is really verified. I would say about 70% of it is completely baseless.
Yeah.
You know, they had no problem doing that. So it's very selective. But
and they're also running the line, well, we don't actually have people in Iran, so we're having to check it first. And of course, they had no one in Gaza either. And they were happy not to check it. And there is a double standard running there. And I've noticed that, I mean, they don't really have people in Sudan either, and the horrors that are going on there at the moment as well. There does seem to be that willful blindness going on.
We don't need journalists like that.
No. Well, look, I mean, you've heard of Walter Duranty, right? Walter Duranty, the New York Times reporter in the 1930s, won a Pulitzer Prize. It's never been returned for denying the fact of the Holodomor, which of course was the starvation, purposeful starvation of the Ukrainians before the Second World War. At that time, there was a shortage of grain in the Soviet Union because the Soviet Union sucked, and so Stalin was taking all of the grain grown in Ukraine and taking it up to Russia proper, up to the Moscow and Petersburg and the like, and feeding the Russians, and the Ukrainians were left with no grain, and it caused millions and millions of deaths.
What were their? It's the coup? Is it? Was it kulaks, or have I got that wrong?
Kulaks. No, the kulaks were a separate matter. They were the wealthy peasants who had some land. They were liquidated separately in a separate order. And there was a separate persecution by the Soviet Union. The Walter Duranty spent much of the 30s absolutely denying there was any Holodomor at all in there, and won a Pulitzer Prize for his reporting out of the Soviet Union, which the New York Times still has to this day yet to return, even though it has been shown that he was absolutely lying through his teeth.
You see, that's the aspect of McCarthyism. And I know a bit about McCarthy because I read this massive book on him, which was fascinating, by Larry Tye, and just what recent biography, very, very good, very detailed, very good. The Red Scare was sort of over by the time he'd got into power, so he was sort of resuscitating something that had kind of passed on. But in the 30s, there would have been a hell of a lot of denial of what was going on in Russia. They did not want to know. So you would have got that. And interestingly, we're getting that today. Like people are trying to say that Iran isn't so bad, their resistance, they'd be fine if they weren't sanctioned. That's all it is. Venezuela as well. It's that same, I don't know whether it's something the left does more than the right or what, but
the with communists both pre and post World War II, it was academia was very much pro the Soviet Union. The aristocracy was more in favor of National Socialism. I think because of the nationalist socialist as opposed to the internationalist socialist. Also, the anti-Semitism came into it. But the important thing that's coming out, and we see that to this day, academia certainly goes left and self-selects out of the left. And the fact is, though, that X has shown itself, especially with the Iranian matter, the reporting of people on the ground has meant that we haven't needed the journalists. We haven't needed to rely on people on the ground. The old.
Well, we benefit from them. To be fair, if they were active and were able to do it, I mean, maybe today's standard, I'm not so sure. But you're right. We're getting, we're there with people on the ground.
Absolutely.
Starmer wants to get rid of it. He wants to get rid of it. So
he wants to get rid of it. Exactly.
We would not know. There wouldn't be the groundswell. There wouldn't be the political pressure for him to act or anyone to act.
Precisely.
They'd just murder them all, and they would be. I mean, these are the stakes.
But you think about it, right? If it wasn't for X, Starmer wouldn't have the problem with the grooming gang inquiry today.
Yeah,
because that was almost pushed entirely through X,
yeah.
through people on X, being amplified by Musk, but he didn't start that. It was on X. It was other people. Musk just came along to it and amplified it. If it wasn't for that, those poor girls, the victims who had been denied, castigated, prosecuted in some places, had been called sluts and prostitutes by counsellors, by police officers, would not have justice. People would not have gone to prison as much. Without this sort of thing, we wouldn't be having the inquiry that's taken up to 15 years for some of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those situations where, I get confronted by so much, anti-Semitism and really horrible stuff.
Yeah.
But it's almost like I see it this way. It's like looking for gold. You get a whole lot of shit in a pan, you shake it, and then gold comes out. Now, that gold is precious. There's going to be a lot of shit. There's going to be a lot of waste. There's going to be a lot of ugly rocks that are worth nothing.
Mm-hmm.
But there is gold in there.
Absolutely.
And that's a free speech thing too, because it's like you never know what if you're throwing the baby out with the bathwater when you do these blanket bans,
Soon after the printing press hit England, the Star Chambers have been used to control it. And one of the interesting things that they did, apart from giving monopolies on the right to print psalters and hymnals and school books and things like that. But one of the other things they did was they actually put a limit on who could print news and what news they could print. And part of that was that it was actually an offence to print libel, and libel included printing the truth if it didn't suit the government. And so you could be prosecuted for printing the truth if the government didn't like it. And that included, printing about government defeats on the continent and stuff like that. And so people would get around that by printing newspapers in the Netherlands and then shipping them across. They'd be a few days late, but they'd be there. And then they'd be distributed. And of course, you wouldn't get in trouble for the distribution because the laws hadn't caught up. You would in trouble for the printing, not the distribution. And so they kept on having to fight this losing game. The fact is, the government has always wanted to control the distribution of information, and Starmer's showing that to this day. It's not about Musk so much. It's not about social media. It's about controlling the flow of information. And at the moment in the UK, they control the flow of information. They've got Ofcom. They've got the newspaper standards. They've got all that sort of stuff. They can control what happens. The news media will control itself. Ofcom is incredibly punitive. They've got the licensing fee. X, they can't control. And they don't like that.
No. Well, on Ofcom, I saw an interview today, actually, or a piece of an interview on X, where they were talking about Palestinian. Is it Palestinian Action, or am I mixing that up with the climate one?
Palestine Action?
The one that got designated as a terror group.
Yes, Palestine Action.
Palestine Action. Now, they went onto a military base. I think once you breach a military base, yeah, man. Yeah, I don't. It's not like I've got a big problem with that designation. It might seem harsh, but wandering onto a military base and mucking around, vandalizing equipment, that's not cool. But they have the IRGC in Iran are not.
I know, right?
Suddenly, my allegiance is with this Palestine Action. I'm going, dude, you guys were done.
I don't think the IRGC are a terrorist group here either, and yet they're one of the biggest organizers and funders of terror in the world.
Well, this gets us into a whole other topic, man.
But hold on. Just on the Palestine Action, and I know we had a good discussion about this within the FSU Council itself. And I certainly took the view that on the basis of just that invasion of the base, they should not be designated. And I still maintain that. But since then, it's come out they had a number of other invasions into groups, including, of course, taking a sledgehammer to a police officer's back.
Well, police or security officer, someone.
Yeah, just horrendous stuff. So not only was it not a one-off, it was a campaign. Once you get into a campaign, then you get into actually being a terrorist organization. But it's interesting because, of course, those the two planes that they damaged apparently have now had their service lives shortened by a few years each, as well as costing millions and millions of pounds to repair. It's all because they were flying equipment south.
Yeah. Let's circle back to your plans to get on the board this year and what you want to do, whether you want to run, how you want to run, all of that, and what you think has transpired since, and where the urgent matters are going to be, or whether they're the same.
They've kept their head down, actually, for the most part. They've kept their head down. They've just got on with it. There's been some interesting initiatives, and they've focused a lot on security. The celebration within the Internet New Zealand community after I didn't get on, but Jonathan did, was unpleasant. And of course, at the time, there was an attempt by David Farrar to revert the Constitution back to the old Constitution, which didn't succeed, and they were jubilant about that, to say the least. This year, I think there's 3 positions available on the board. And so it would be nice to get some more people who are committed to free speech on there. We hadn't initially wanted to get anyone on the board. That was never the plan. It wasn't a consideration at all. We just wanted to stop the actually just on that. We wanted to stop the constitutional changes relevant to freedom of speech going through. That was the idea. Okay, to stop us achieving that with the increase in numbers, they had a special general meeting before the new members became able to vote. So the new members couldn't vote for 3 months. So they had an SGM within the 3-month period, which meant that only the initial 300 members were able to vote.
But was that and that was new?
Yeah, it was relatively new. And
so they would do these things to sort of prevent.
Oh, they screwed it completely. Yeah, they did. And so, although they say 86% of the members voted for the constitutional changes, that was still only about 150 odd members voted for changes. And so it was not as if, if several thousand people voted in favour of this. It wasn't at all. We got beaten badly in the AGM. Certainly, they mustered a lot of people to vote against us. Jonathan got in on the first vote. Actually, it was a resounding success getting Jonathan in, and I'm really glad for him too, because he will give them a run for their money, and that's fantastic. This year, as I say, there's 3. I can think of a couple of people immediately. One who stood last time who would do fantastically well on there. And so, yeah, it would be good to have some people on there who are committed to freedom of speech on the internet. That's not to say that you don't take harm on the internet seriously, but it's to say that there is the definition of harm is important, and and that's got to be weighed up against what freedom is as well.
Harm, as a definition, I think it just has to be, like hate speech and things like that. It just has to be incitement, really.
It is.
Or criminal behavior, because anything else is just too woolly.
Yeah.
To really, for it to really work. But maybe our last little question. In all the media, or most of the media, like I've said, this was set up as, like a takeover, and,
oh goodness.
They made it sort of sound like we were being really dishonest. Like they never said why, but there was just something really bad faith about it, and dishonest and everything. But it was just completely democratic. This is a cause that affects New Zealanders, and we said, if you don't like this, join. Don't have a gun to your head. Join, and we'll help you take care of it.
Yeah.
It's democracy.
We never told anyone how to vote. We never did anything like that. No. And we never even started this with the thought of putting anyone on the board. or even standing for the board. It was simply there's some things here that we thought were going to see people potentially censored. And that was what concerned us.
So great, man. Well, look, okay. Well, I think we've had a really good yak.
It's been fun.
Yeah. So what's going to happen now? Will you be sort of giving updates through the, do you want to really have a long campaign, or are you worried about wearing people out? Like, what do you want to do? Do you want to sort of really, focus on this issue quite strongly, or are you even a little bit undecided about whether you want to run?
Yeah, we'll talk to Jelaine and see if we can find 3 people. I think it's much better if there's 3 of us going to start with. And if we can find 3 of us to do it, then a campaign would be good. But the first thing is, see if we can get the membership up again and get the numbers there and do it. If the numbers aren't there, I don't think it's worth having a go. But if we can, I think it's worth it. It's something that is A, interesting, and B, worthwhile. The internet is something that these days, the country depends on it for its democracy, and without it, we're screwed. And so, it's important. So, I am interested. Long campaign? No, I don't think so. There isn't really a need for it. There are rules in the Constitution for Internet New Zealand around, when and how. So I think if we plan around that, we'll do that. We'll do it that way. I'd be keen to do it again.
It's been great. I think, I don't know, we may have talked for an hour or so, but great. No, there's much more but we can do this any time, come back and pick up all this other stuff.
Let's do that.
So fantastic, man. Yeah, thank you.
I'm always up for it, and you know that.
Thank you for listening to Free to Speak. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider sharing the podcast with others. We release new episodes regularly, and subscribing is the easiest way to stay up to date. If you have any questions, feedback, or suggestions, you can contact us at podcast@fsu.nz. If you want to find out more about the New Zealand Free Speech Union, visit fsu.nz.